So here is the end of my LP collection. This is the grand finale. Years ago, I was in a store somewhere and I saw these square frames that were made to hold album covers, and I was immediately captivated. I knew that I had to get some because, as I've said earlier, I love album art. I love the album cover. I used to love going to record stores and just flipping through the albums, enjoying the art, the representation of artists, or the imagery on the cover, and wondering why they pick that, what it says about the music, what it says about the artist's vision. And sometimes that art is enduring, sometimes that art is regrettable, sometimes it doesn't age very well at all. Well, I bought, I think, 14 of those album frames, and I came home and I went into my album collection and I started to look at album covers that I love, music that I love, albums that were important to me, music that just had a strong impact on me, artists whom I really wanted to lift up as good examples in my life, people whom I respect. So I have these 14 framed album covers, and I'm just going to talk you through it real quick to show you each of them. Well, maybe not so quick. The first is Till Tuesday. This is their debut album. To me, this is such a classic. Amy Mann, such a great songwriter, such a great artist, and really from the beginning, she really set such a high bar for herself. Again, as a songwriter, as a singer, and as a musician. She continues to make such wonderful music to this day. As I said earlier, her album Mental Illness, the latest, is just wonderful. But their debut album is filled with great music. Voices Carry was a great hit. Love in a Vacuum, lots of good tunes on here. And I think it's a cool cover because it really captures some 80s style, both in terms of hair and clothes, and it captures an artist like Amy Mann at the start of her career. So I'm happy to have that one framed. The sleeve is here, cool picture on the inside, and lyrics on the back. Gosh, I miss those days. The next one is a classic that a lot of people will recognize. My goodness, I have a mess here. The debut album by a-ha. The song Take On Me, massively popular hit, but really this is an excellent album. There are so many great songs. I really think start to finish, this is quality music, and I remember them winning Best New Artist, and a lot of music critics howling at the injustice. I don't remember who they beat, and they probably beat somebody who maybe has been more enduring, but they've released lots of excellent albums. They're great musicians, and he's got a great voice. Their songs are instantly catchy, and as pop music, I think they're deserving of the title of artists. Here's the sleeve, so photograph that way and then that way. I don't know if you call that infrared, some kind of reversal, but that was an interesting choice for a sleeve representation. Another album I've talked about before, and a group I've mentioned before, Heaven 17, The Luxury Gap. This is kind of a cool scene on some South Pacific island, it looks like to me. And there's or maybe Southeast Asian, there's some kind of a ship out on the harbor, and they're standing there on the shore. I love this album. I think this is the American version. The British version of this album is different. Temptation, Come Live With Me, Lady Ice, and Mr. Hex. I think The Best Kept Secret is on here. Love this album. It captures so many great Heaven 17 moments. So some kind of a photograph that's been treated on one side, and then again the lyrics on another. Love that about albums, that you were able to read the lyrics. You could put on the album, stare at the cover, and consult the lyrics as needed. a classic album in my family history and in my own history by a classic band, Electric Light Orchestra, A New World Record. As I've said, it would be hard for me to pick my favorite ELO album, but there's something really beautiful about this album. The song So Fine, I think, that starts the second side, one of the songs on the soundtrack to my life. But Telephone Line, Living Thing, I think Rockaria is on here. Mission, Shangri-La, just great tunes by a great songwriter and incredible musicians. I always think Bev Bevan was such a cool drummer from the 70s. And he has a great solo in the song Do Ya on this album that really represents another defining musical moment for me from the 70s. There's the picture of the band and the lyrics on the back. I'm happy this album is still in pretty good shape. The next album is one that I just dearly love by a British artist named Kate Bush, The Hounds of Love. I don't own a lot of Kate Bush, but I must have read in Rolling Stone that this was an excellent album when it came out, and they were right. It's haunting, it's fragile, it's beautiful, it's buoyant, it's upbeat, it's dark. There's so much haunting that's going on in this album. It's dreamy, it's a little frightening. She's a true artist, and her music rightly has stood the test of time. So inside there's a picture of her with the lyrics for one side and another picture with lyrics for another side. And the cool thing about this album, it is white marble. That's a pretty cool novelty from this era. So Kate Bush, The Hounds of Love. If you've never heard it before, I would highly recommend it. She's an amazing singer and lyricist and songwriter. Another album from the 80s that I dearly love, the Thompson Twins Sidekicks. I might have mentioned this one before. I love this cover. I think it's a great photograph. And I love their aesthetic. And it's a percussion heavy group, but a lot of great pop sensibility. An alternative take on pop. But I love this album. Love on Your Side, We Are Detective, Tears, Love Lies Bleeding, Judy Doo, Kamikaze. If You Were Here, I think, was on the 16 Candles soundtrack, if I remember correctly. Cool picture on the back. It really embodies that cool 80s imagery. The sleeve on this one is just a clear cellophane. The next one is by another band. I have several of their albums, but I think this would still be my favorite. Scritti Poletti, Cupid and Psyche, 85. I loved the song Perfect Way, The Word Girl. So many cool tunes on here. It's kind of an alternative, funky dance album. Green Gartside, I think, is the singer's name. It's got a rather high voice, but they really lay down a good groove. The sleeve has a picture of them, and this is all the words. It looks like a run-on sentence there on the back. But Scritti Poletti, Cupid and Psyche, 85. I love that album. I think there's a song on there called A Little Knowledge also, that just a great kind of a soul, again, that British neo-soul, great song. This is an album by a group I've mentioned many times, The Fix. This is their album Phantoms. I love, it's surreal and yet it's representational. It's abstract and yet there's plenty of imagery in it to identify and enjoy. There's something so mystical about their album covers in this era, and this is a pretty cool album. Less Cities, More Moving People, Phantom Living. What's the other song on here? Are We Ourselves? I always loved that song. Not much in terms of lyrics on this, but some photographs The Fix, they have their own unique sound, and I really love that. Another of my favorite bands from that era, Journey. This is, I think, their second album, Evolution. I just think this is a cool cover. It's my favorite cover from their albums. And as I've said, I think their album covers were always so cool. Any Way You Want It is on here. I don't remember all the other songs, but I listened to it a lot. They have some photos, band photos. I had no idea that Neil Schon and Greg Rowley had both been affiliated with Santana. Parishioner has given me some teaching lately on some classic rock, and as he was talking about Santana, Greg Rowley and Neil Schon were both players with Santana. So it's kind of cool how classic players keep mentoring and spawning new artists who start new bands who do their own thing. I have mentioned this album. I love InXS, The Swing. I like a lot of their albums. I have a lot of their albums, but this is my favorite. Original Sin is on here. Johnston's Aeroplane. Let's see. I Sent a Message, Melting in the Sun, Dancing on the Jetty. That's a song that I hear and I get such a visual. It's that great InXS, there's that driving beat, pretty sparse, and then I think his name's Tim Ferriss, the guitarist, has some great guitar fills in between the drum beats, and a good rhythm section to this band. So nice photos of the band, and a little bit of information on the other side. No lyrics. Another band, this is one my brother Steve introduced me to, that I love this album, Depeche Mode, Some Great Reward. Nice cover, and for me this is one of their better albums. Black Celebration, I think, would be my favorite, or this. I think People Are People is on here. Yeah, and Something to Do. Stories of Old, that's a great song. Master and Servant. Blasphemous Rumors. So great album, Depeche Mode, Some Great Reward. I think they were slowly becoming more and more popular, but this was really before they got most popular. Another of my favorite 80s albums, Missing Persons, Spring Session M. Spring Session M is, I think you call it an anagram of missing persons. Take the letters and rearrange it into some other words. Love the cover. Dale Bozzio had such a striking figure and presence, and she was always such a remarkable vision. And on the back, the band, Dale, and I think that's Terry Bozzio, yeah, and Warren Cucurullo. I had no idea until recently that the three of them had been affiliated with Frank Zappa, that they had been a part of his band for a time. So I love this album. It really captures sort of that post-punk 80s dark new wave feel. Some great playing on this album. The drums, the guitar. I think it's worth a listen. So there are photos of the band there with different photographic treatments and the lyrics. Just a few more to go. Loved the Eurythmics, and their debut album I thought deserved to be framed. First, it's a cool cover. It's got a nice, it carries that 80s vibe so well. But I loved this album. Sweet Dreams Are Made of This. Love Is a Stranger. This Is the House, I think, is on here. Lots of great songs. Annie Lennox really had this defining impact on MTV. She was such a striking figure, powerful voice, and great songs. So Sweet Dreams Sweet Dreams Are Made of This, the debut album for Eurythmics. Love that album. This album cover just makes me smile. The B-52's Wild Planet. those visuals, the hair, the outfits, even the poses, there's just kind of a manifesto in this cover. It tells you everything you need to know about the music. They don't take themselves very seriously. They're there to have fun, and they're not afraid of much of anything. And this is a great album. Private Idaho, I think Party Out of Bounds is on here. No, I think that might be on their debut. Dirty Backroads, great album. And the sleeve is Dog Prince. I think Quiche Lorraine is on here. It's another funny song by the B-52s about a dog named Quiche Lorraine. I might have shared these covers with you before, but I have two that are without their covers, and two albums that I dearly love. Again, Steely Dan, Asia. It would be in my top 10 albums for sure. I think that album, start to finish, is just incredibly well written, incredibly played, and every one of those songs can transport me to a certain time in the 70s. I've been doing some reading and learning about the band members, especially Donald Fagen and Walter Becker. And that Donald Fagen was insecure about his voice is astounding to me, because his voice is part of what I just love about their music. Such a sophistication to his voice, his piano playing, his keyboards, Walter Becker's guitar, their songwriting. That is just a landmark album. It should be remembered for decades to come as one of the best. The last one here is Tears for Fears. It's their debut album. I think it was called The Hurting. That's the first song, The Hurting. Great song. Mad World, popularized by somebody on American Idol. Pale Shelter, Watch Me Bleed, Change. I think that was another popular one on MTV. Start of the Breakdown. They really wrote a great album here. They captured a good 80s alternative rock pop sound. As they recorded more, they moved to the center a lot. But this debut album really had a nice edge to it. And the sound, the lyrics, all really articulated two people really trying to work through some trauma and pain in real ways, in ways to come to grips with the journey of their lives thus far, and using music to do that. So these are my framed album covers. Love the albums, love the covers, and I'll continue to display them throughout the journey of my life, because they all have something to say to me, and I'm really grateful for that music. So that concludes my album collection. Since these, I've bought lots of compact discs. I could go through my compact disc collection. If this goes on for a long time to come, maybe I will. And if I exhaust my CDs, I could move on to my Spotify library. But there's something so cool about an LP. And I thank you for watching and letting me share my love of this album collection that has been so precious to me.